20% of the league are free agents. Like, everyone timed their contracts. Everybody signed one-year deals, and everyone timed their contracts to coincide with this new CBA. So literally, there's not even really any teams. There's only like 20% of.
Ladies and gentlemen, pause the noise for a second and focus on what was just reported on national television. We've been following the WNBA collective bargaining tension for weeks. The stalled negotiations, the public messaging, the frustration on both sides. But when Ramona Shelburne appeared on The Rich Eisen show, the conversation escalated. The central issue? A massive wave of expiring contracts that has left a large percentage of players currently unsigned. That's not a minor detail. That's a structural pressure point. Many veterans agreed to short-term deals in anticipation of a new CBA, expecting that rising revenues and increased visibility around stars like Caitlin Clark would strengthen their bargaining position. But here's the risk in that strategy. When too many contracts expire at once during active negotiations, roster stability disappears. Now layer in expansion. The WNBA is preparing to add teams in Toronto and Portland, a milestone moment for league growth. Expansion drafts require clarity, salary cap numbers, contract rules, revenue splits. Without a finalized collective bargaining agreement, front offices are operating in uncertainty. You can't structure multi-year commitments when financial parameters aren't locked in. Even the release of the regular season schedule, including marquee matchups like the Fever facing the Liberty, doesn't automatically signal smooth sailing. League operations continue publicly, but behind the scenes, negotiations remain delicate. This isn't a hostage scenario. It's high-stakes leverage on both sides. Players are pushing for a larger share of rising revenues. Owners are weighing long-term sustainability and cost controls. When both parties wait for the other to concede first, tension builds. The question now isn't whether the league wants growth. Everyone does. The real question is who blinks first, and whether compromise comes before competitive and logistical uncertainty begins affecting the season itself.
We're getting close here, Rich. I mean, I thought it was interesting the league put out a schedule, because one of the pressure points I had been hearing was literally arena dates. You know how this goes. Like, if you don't have your dates on the schedule, they give them away to some concert. They give them away to some circus that comes to town, or they give them away to anybody else who wants to use the arena. Arenas cannot have open dates. And if you want those open dates, you gotta lock those in. So the league went forward with the idea of let's do the schedule, even though we don't even know who's on what team. And I thought that was a blip.
Let's dial this back from the theatrics and focus on what's actually happening. When a league releases a schedule before every roster spot is finalized, that's not fake. It's standard operational planning. Arena calendars are booked months, sometimes years, in advance. Venues host everything from concerts to family shows to other sporting events, and professional leagues must lock in dates early to protect availability. That doesn't mean the season is fictional or that teams won't exist. It means negotiations and logistics are unfolding at the same time. The WNBA, like every major league, has to manage business continuity even while collective bargaining talks continue. Now, regarding revenue demands, players seeking a larger percentage of league income isn't radical. It's the same framework used in the NBA, NFL, MLB, and NHL. The debate centers on how revenue is defined, how profitability is measured, and how future media deals are projected. The WNBA has historically operated at a financial deficit according to public reporting, though recent growth in viewership, sponsorship, and expansion has shifted optimism about long-term sustainability. Players like Breanna Stewart and Nneka Agwamike advocating for a higher revenue share are negotiating within that broader growth context, not demanding NBA-level economics overnight, but pushing for a structure that reflects rising visibility and investment. And yes, increased national attention plays a role. Broadcasters such as Rich Eisen have acknowledged that star power, including figures like Caitlin Clark, has elevated mainstream conversation around the league. But labor disputes aren't built on one player alone. They're shaped by media rights projections, sponsorship growth, expansion markets, and long-term financial modeling. This isn't ambition outrunning reality. It's both sides negotiating what the new reality should look like as the league grows.
I mean, to be flippant, but again, there's a golden goose that's getting more valuable here and and stars. I mean, Juju Watkins is going to be healthy. Like this is rubber meat in the.
The Golden Goose narrative centers on one undeniable reality: star power changes leverage. Commentators like Rich Eisen have pointed out that the WNBA's recent surge in mainstream attention is closely tied to the arrival of Caitlin Clark. Her games drove record ratings, ticket demand, and national conversation. That momentum is valuable and fragile. Casual sports audiences often follow players more than leagues, and if labor negotiations were to delay the season, some of that audience could drift elsewhere. That's not a threat. It's simply how modern sports consumption works. Timing matters. Cultural heat doesn't stay at peak levels forever. The same time, framing this as veterans strangling the moment oversimplifies a complex labor negotiation. Union leaders such as Nneka Agwemike and Breanna Stewart are advocating for structural changes they believe reflect the league's growth trajectory, including revenue sharing, salary cap adjustments, and long-term security for players across the roster. The challenge is logistical as much as financial. With a high percentage of players on expiring contracts, expansion teams preparing to enter the league, and the draft and training camps approaching, the calendar compresses decision-making into a narrow window. Even if an agreement is reached, front offices will have significant work to finalize rosters and contracts efficiently. Commissioner oversight from figures like Adam Silver, whose NBA has financial ties to the WNBA, adds another layer of pressure. Broadcast partners such as Disney, Amazon, and NBC are monitoring stability as they evaluate long-term media investments. Both ownership and players understand what's at stake: sustained growth versus short-term disruption. The debate ultimately isn't about ego or sabotage. It's about how to divide expanding revenues in a way that supports competitive balance and long-term sustainability. The coming weeks are critical, but the outcome will likely hinge on compromise rather than collapse.